Important state visit that is happening as we speak. Sheikh Haitham bin Tariq Al Said, the Sultan of Oman, is on a 3-day state visit to India after a grand welcome at the airport and a ceremonial reception. We'll put out some of those visuals, in fact, if we can, of this ceremonial reception that the Sultan of Oman has received in New Delhi with. There you have it on your screens at the airport in a ceremonial reception, like I said, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, visuals of which are on your screen. Sultan Al Said's visit is expected to boost friendship and cooperation between the two nations. India's foreign policy regarding the Middle East is on track, with countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE already enchanted by Prime Minister Modi's vision for India and the world. However, these troubling times in the Middle East with the Israel-Hamas war, Oman is now, of course, one of the leading voices of criticism for Israel. Does this now hold or become the ultimate test of diplomacy? I take this conversation forward. I have with me Sumit Peer, Gautam Mukherjee and Asif Ramiz Daudi, international affairs expert from Saudi Arabia, who's also joining us on the broadcast. Sumit, first off, the Sultan of Oman making his first state visit to India just few months after the Israel-Hamas war. What is the message that he is trying to give us?
Devika ji, thanks for having me on your show. Well, the visit is very clear. India's foreign policy is not based on religion. We don't discriminate people on the basis of religion. Indian foreign policy is based on the mutual interest of India. For example, if you look at the Indian-Oman thing, if you just look at 2020, 3 years back, the trade was around $5 billion. Now today, this year, it's going to be around $14 billion. So it has increased 150%. Now we have a very strategic military port which Oman has leased to us, which is an answer to China's so-called string of pearls, what we call as a chain of diamonds, or what we call as a necklace of diamonds. Oman is a very strategic partner there. So Oman sees India as a very strategic partner, and being traveled to Oman, I can tell you one thing numerous times. If somebody has a fracture or something beyond that, either you have to go to UK or you have to come to India. There are so many Omanis who come to India for medical tourism. There are so many Omanis who come to India for religious tourism. And there are so many Indians who work in Oman. So the relation is quite old. The relation goes to more than 50 years now, I think 60 years plus. With all these things happening, it means that, amidst India supporting Israel, amidst India siding with the Israel, but that Israel and the religious angle is not here. Sheikh is here for the mutual benefit, for the trade, for the betterment, for the economic tie-ups, for the tie-ups in the education, for the tie-ups in hospitality, education, and a lot of their students come here to study. With all these benefits on the card, the message is very, very clear. Look, America has a lot of problems with a lot of Muslim countries, but I have not seen a Muslim country who says, I don't want to visit America because you have a problem with the ex-Muslim country. So India has elevated to a stature where it is a part of the B4 or the big four countries, where your foreign policy, where your religion, where your affiliations, and which side do you take on a global conflict does not impact you. That is the biggest statement what the Sheikh is giving here, and the kind of reception we have given him. Looking at the size of Oman, is not a very big country, though we have all the respects for them, is talks about that India takes this relation very, very strategically. They are, I would say, one of our most strategic military partners in Middle East because of the port we have got and the relevance port has in safeguarding our supply lines and having our dominance, the military dominance in the region, and also controlling and checking the China's so-called, diamond of this string of pearls. What we have is a diamond of necklace. So these are the things which India is doing. It is a question of elevated India's stature. While as you would have seen, Sheikh would have, if it was 10, 15 years back, it was not the Prime Minister Modi's time, Sheikh Saab would have avoided to come to India at this point of time. They will be saying, no, you're sided with Israel, so we cannot come to India. Gone are those days. India's diplomacy, India's stature is much beyond any regional or religious conflict. That is a very, very important message. This visit is cementing. And remember, Devika ji, 3 days visit. 3 days is a big visit. 3 days state visit is a big visit. Unless and until you are the Prime Minister, the leave chance Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was in America for 11 days and going to seeing all the McDonald's outlets. Well, nobody met him. So if you look at that, if you keep that aside, the pun aside, 3 days strategic visit is a very, very important thing. This talks of India's foreign policy and relation has gone beyond any religion or region. It is today principle driven, it is economy driven, it is development driven. And that is what is the mantra of Prime Minister Modi is. Prime Minister Modi needs to be complimented for cementing ties with the Islamic nations to a level, even with this war going on your next door, the Sheikh of Oman is here, and remember, next to Oman is Yemen, and in Yemen, you have all those nefarious characters, Houthis, who are attacking ship after ship after ship. So, with all these things going on, I see it as a very strategic visit, and I see that India's foreign policy with the globe has seen a new paradigm, has seen a new stature. Devika ji.
Okay. Sumit, I will come back to you. Gautam Mukherjee, same question to you. I'd like to understand from your perspective. The first state visit of the Sultan of Oman. Yes, India and Oman have had very good, strong relations in the past, but Oman has been critical of Israel, and India has been very clear in its support of Israel. The fact that he chooses this time to make his state visit, and it's a 3-day state visit. There are several meetings that are lined up. India has given a grand welcome to the Sultan. What is the message from from Oman, to us, and from then India to Oman as well, and to the rest of the Middle East?
Well, the groundwork has been laid. Mr. Doval went there. The External Affairs Minister went there. Mr. Modi also went there. Now, this is the new Sultan. We've had Sultan Qaboos, who had a very long reign and was very closely allied to the British in particular and the Americans. There is an American and British presence militarily because of Oman's strategic position at more or less the mouth of the Straits of Hormuz. They are discreet about where the bases are. They're not in Muscat and Salalah. They are in the islands, Musandam and so on, where the population is low and the presence, and this is a very long presence, decades and decades. So they are very closely Western allied. Of late, they've also been making overtures to the Chinese. This is partially economically driven because they put in a lot of universities, and much of the youth of Oman is not properly employed. Many of the expatriates are slowly leaving. I myself was there for 10 years, so I know it rather intimately. Now, they're slowly trying to put in Omani youth in place of expatriates, but the skill sets are always a challenge. I believe there is a nudge from America and NATO, the US allies in Europe, to get on with a closer relationship with India. They have given us a base in Tukum, but they've been sort of sitting on the fence. Saudi Arabia has come closer to us. I'm talking of during Sultan Haitham, and in Qaboos's time, it was a different equation in the Gulf and the Middle East. But now it's very clear that neither the US nor its NATO allies, Europeans, would be happy if Oman went anywhere near the Chinese. We also have the I2U2 to think about the fact that we have dramatically improved our relationships, not only with Israel, but also with UAE and Saudi Arabia. They're putting in a railway line from Oman to Saudi Arabia for the first time. Road connectivity also. So this is the right time. There was reports today of a possible FTA. There is a large Indian community there, particularly from Kutch in Gujarat, who are now Omani citizens and are a substantial influence in the commercial life of the country. So in many ways, this is a made for each other relationship. We know each other very well, but now it's both politically defense-wise and diplomatically expedient to push this along at a faster pace. So this is the first move from the new Sultan. Of course, they also attended the G20 through their defense minister.
Right.
So this is a very welcome development.
At the same time, Sumit, bringing you back into the conversation, like I said, what is the message then that goes out to the rest of the Middle East? Because India, ever since the Russia-Ukraine war, has made its position in these sort of tussles very clear. India has now said that it is Indian interest which will remain supreme. And as far as the Russia-Ukraine crisis was concerned, India took no sides necessarily. But as far as Israel-Hamas is concerned, yes, India has stood by Israel because of the nature of the terror attack that took place. What is then the message that goes out to the rest of the Middle East from India? Because as the Middle East has its own permutations and combinations going on right now. There's, there are two very clear blocks. There's one that's being led by the Saudis, there's one that's being led by Iraq. Where does India then, and how does India then position itself between the two?
You see, in fact, India is the only country which has been able to manage this divide effectively. I think yesterday Mr. Ajay Doval was meeting his counterpart in Iran, and we have the Sultan of Oman here. There will not be a country where these coincidences will happen in 48 hours. There's no country like this. Even with the United States of America, it's difficult to happen because there are two different camps here. Now, Oman has an imminent threat from Yemen. And Yemen is a country which has nothing to lose. Houthis and all, they take orders from Iran. Whatever Iran will tell them, they will do it. So, and Houthis have even been a pain in the wrong side for Saudis when they attack their oil refineries and all. Even Saudis understand what is the amount of, trouble Houthis can bring. Today, let me tell you, Devikaji, they are Patriot missile batteries which are deployed in Saudi Arabia to protect the holy city of Makkah and Medina from a possible attack from Houthis on the behest of Iran. And who is protecting them? It's the American Christian soldiers who are on the ground protecting it. Now, we are the highest people contributing to the the United Nations peacekeeping forces. So the stature of India is not like a typical Hindu country or all. India supported Israel because it was not against Palestine. India supported Israel against Hamas. If you see recent UN resolution, we have voted for the immediate ceasefire. So wherever there is humanity, wherever there are things, we will do a very objective-based diplomacy. We will not do what this typical Chinese-style diplomacy and where you do this wolf warrior diplomacy to say. We are very objective-driven. We look at the interest of India, we look at the interest of the Indian community, and we look at the interest of the humanity as such. Look, when it comes to sending aid to Gaza, we were one of the first countries to send aid to Gaza. When it was after sending aid to Turkey, amidst the tussles we have with Erdogan, but we were the second biggest country with the contingent there. Even Israelis went there. Unfortunately, some countries influenced by OIC and all, they see everything through a religious prism. If they just let this religious prism go and see world at an objective level, swear to God, there is not a better ally than India where you can have. You can get medical here, you can get food here, you can get education here. Market everything. Look at the prices, what you get a thing in India and what you come get in the thing in the US. Look at the price, what you get a thing in India and what you get a UK, what you typically go. I mean, based on all my visits there, I have not lived like Gautam there, but I have been visiting to Oman. And these guys have been very clear. I was doing some business with Omantel, that is the telco of Oman. And these guys have been always telling me, look, Subhat, beyond a fracture, we have to go to a UK or we have to go to India. So we choose India because we get that warmth, we get that hospitality, we get those guides, and there is no discrimination in India. That is the compliment they always give us. While in UK, there is a discrimination, let's face it, and the costs are very high. So we prefer, even if we have all the money in the world, we prefer to go to India rather than UK. And with these things happening and with the Modi's diplomacy working, you see, the stature of India is altogether different. Though Pakistan and ISI tried to brand this as a Hindu fascist country and all that, but that all facade and propaganda of Pakistan and ISI has dwindled. Where is that thing happening? And you see Ajay Dovalji meeting his counterpart in Iran, and the Sheikh is here. And after 55, 60 years of diplomatic relations, for the first time the Sheikh is coming here on a 3-day state visit. It talks that India is now a superpower in making, because this kind of a stature, if you look some years back, was only at it was Russia or it was United States of America. Now there's another undercurrent which is happening in the Middle East. Earlier it was Britain and France. When
Yes.
10 years back, Britain and France. Now Britain and France are out of the game. With I2U2, we getting in. That I've been always saying that when we get into I2U2, we are replacing Britain and France. They are not seen as those major players. India has gone up to a big stature. Israel is there, which is strategic. UAE is strategic because they are the larger players. Minus the strategic players, who are the two global players? It's us and United States of America. So India is seen at par with United States of America in the Middle East, and these camps were able to manage the relation with both the camps, though we have our differences and all. And somehow we did not let our foreign policy and diplomacy to be painted in the color of religion. That is the biggest achievement of Prime Minister Modi and Dr. Jaishankar. Religious
Yes.
color did not come in. That is what I see as the biggest achievement, and that states today validated by the whole Islamic world, which is again a feather in the cap. I mean, this is
Yes,
a
and
very
an
important.
interesting point also that raised by you, Sumit, that none of these countries are really flocking our neighbor Pakistan, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that has to be noted. Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee also joins us on the broadcast. Ambassador Mukherjee, a very important state visit taking place as we speak, ma'am. Sultan of Oman on a 3-day visit to India for the first time. The timing of the visit is, of course, very interesting, happening just a few months into the Israel-Hamas war, and the fact that the two blocs within the Middle East continue to consolidate support from their allies within the Middle East. So very interesting developments in the region itself. But ma'am, what really, Ambassador Mukherjee, has India done right to position itself as a country where both the blocs and countries from both the blocs of the Middle East definitely want to ensure that the bilateral ties remain intact and only grow further?
Well, actually, I think the first thing that we did was to consolidate our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And this actually helped us also within the OIC, where earlier the Pakistanis, that is before the government of Prime Minister Modi, the Pakistanis used to try to manipulate Arab opinion to regularly bring resolutions on Kashmir or against India in the OIC. That has completely stopped. Secondly, we are seen by the entire Middle East as a balancing power, and that is extremely important. As far as Oman is concerned, we have the closest bilateral ties with Oman. We have a very substantial Indian diaspora in Oman, which is committed to Oman's development. About 10 years ago, the Omanis started a program of Omanization, but it never discriminated against the Indians. Most of the Indians stayed on because they are very comfortable in Oman. They are very well treated. They have no religious discrimination practiced against them, etc. One very important point which Sunit just made was about the whole issue that we have never let our foreign policy be dominated by religion. Ours is a foreign policy which is based on core national interests, on core strategic interests, and in that respect, if you look at the Middle East today, again, we are looked at as a balancing power, and the question legitimately arises, all these countries are flocking to India, they are not going to Pakistan at all. Earlier, they used to go to India and go to Pakistan, or go to Pakistan, go to India, what we in external affairs call hyphenation. And we always used to ask for dehyphenation. That has actually happened seamlessly over the years that Prime Minister Modi has been in power. And this particular visit is of great importance because Oman, although it's a small country, it plays a pivotal role also, a balancing role. And it's a rich country, and we've always looked upon Oman as a country that would take our interests into account. So, given the fact that the Hamas-Israel crisis continues unabated, the visit of the chief guest, our chief guest today, that is the Sultan of Oman, a very powerful man in his own right, would give us the opportunity also to discuss how to bring this intractable conflict to an end, which would suit the Israeli strategic interests, but which would also allow humanitarian assistance to be brought into the Gaza Strip and would eventually facilitate a two-state solution, which we have always advocated in that part of the world. Devika.
Right, absolutely. I leave the last word with Gautam Mukherjee. Gautam Mukherjee, same question from you. I'd just like to understand, how do you think, what is it that India has done right in its foreign policy, and also ensuring that it positions itself as a country that all other nations definitely now want to ensure that they have strong bilateral ties with, regardless of what position India takes in any war in any part of the world?
Well, the main difference, which was not anticipated perhaps certainly 15 years ago, if not a decade ago, is the economic growth. We are going to be the third largest economy. We're going to be at 5 trillion by 26, according to Panagaria's recent article. By 30, we'll be the third largest economy. This is not possible to ignore, particularly China going downhill and America holding it, because it's a huge economy. 1-2% growth is still substantial in the size of their economy. But most of Europe is fished out, as it were. There's not a lot you can expect even in the future. High inflation, low growth has come to stay. So India is a force that is being recognized globally by the United States. And this is something that countries like Oman, it was a different world also. Pakistan actually was a country 15 years ago, if not a very worthwhile one. But today it is a disaster. It is a disaster area. Everybody's attacking everybody. It's falling to bits. They don't have food. It's something else. Sultan Haitham, I believe, has been nudged by the Europeans and the US to forge faster, closer, and more substantial ties with India. We, in turn, have gone there because we want to counter to Iranian intransigence at times. The Hormuz Strait is right there. Blow hot, blow cold when it comes to us. Afghanistan, something you can rely upon with its political and stability. So Oman can indeed be an ally of in this new corridor you're talking of. You can land in Muscat and Salalah and probably integrate it with the rest of it, even though at first you're talking to Dubai in terms of the landing point on that side of the sea. Oman needs economic growth, is a vehicle for Saudi economic growth, let alone Oman. 1,000 barrels per day oil substantial. It gets by because it has a low population. So they need
Absolutely.
us, and we need them for strategic reasons. They need us for economic reasons.
Absolutely. Master Mukherjee, I'll leave the last word with you, ma'am. I'd just like to understand from you then what, as Gautam Mukherjee also pointed out, what is it then that is important? Why is it important for India to then also maintain its bilateral relations with several countries in the Middle East? Because we have also rolled out the red carpet for the Sultan of Oman. The way the countries received him, the fact that it's a 3-day state visit, there are several meetings that have been lined up. So it does indicate that India is also trying to send out a message. What is that?
Well, the message is very clear that we are here for these nations. Our bilateral relationship is very strong. We have a huge Indian diaspora stretching across the length and breadth of the Gulf states, including Oman. And the Arabs are grateful to the fact that all the Indians who are there as diaspora, they have never created any problems of law and order. They have seamlessly worked for the development of these states. And we, on our hand, we have tried to develop strategic outreach to these countries. There has been a lot of talk in the past also, Devika, about developing a pipeline from Oman to Delhi, to India, from under the ocean. There was all this talk about how much it would cost, etc., etc. That pipeline concept is not being put aside. It is still very much under consideration. It's just a question of how much it's going to cost us, etc., etc. So these are all very important issues, and particularly when we have assured oil supplies coming in, this is something that is very important to a country like India, which is an emerging economy and which does not want any disruption in its fuel supply. So I think all in all, it is not at all surprising that we have laid out the red carpet. In fact, this is what we have always done whenever the ruler of Oman has visited, because as I said earlier, it's a small country, it is strategically located, it is a country that has very important ties with the West, and as Gautam also pointed out, the West has also always encouraged the Omanis to develop closer ties with India, because India, because of its strategic positioning and because of Quad, plays a very important role also in securing the strategic interests of the West, and that's also very important both for Oman and for the West. So I think this visit is going to end up with some pretty interesting results. We have to watch and wait and see what happens tomorrow, Devika.
Right, absolutely. I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast. That's all the time that we have.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.